Welcome to the Upshot, Multi World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me back again is Josh Mansfield. It is Tuesday, June 20th, and we have a lot to discuss today. The Dynamic Discs Open, the Konopiste Open. We've got ticket prices and spectating, much to do. But first, Josh, welcome back. How was your week off? I'll put it in quotation marks.
Oh, yeah, right. It was a long week off. I had budget meetings all day during the day, so I would go into work in the morning before those budget meetings and then afterwards as well. That this is the hardest week of city council work that I sign up for. Other than that, it's not too intensive, but this week's a long one. So I'm glad it's over. I spent a lot of time sleeping this weekend, and I'm ready for my life to kind of settle back down again.
Well, I'm glad you got some sleep. We missed you on Sunday for the Rapid Reacts because you were asleep, which because I was asleep. For you to get some extra sleep. I just want to quickly also congratulate Jamie Thomas on the birth of his second child. If you will listen to the show last week, you'll know that he was going to be doing Tournament Central this weekend. And then suddenly he wasn't there. Well, the baby was born. So congrats to Jamie, and his wife and their family, and appreciate him joining us last week. And I guess the timing worked out well for us. We get lucky with Jamie. So, Josh, how has your disc golf consumption been in your busy week?
It was good. I was going to go to Zootown. I ended up getting sick.
Right, that's such a bummer.
I know. I went Thursday. I get back from vacation, and we were going to leave Thursday evening after my brother-in-law was done with work. And so I'm like, I'm just going to take a quick nap. And so I took, because I was feeling so tired, and I go to sleep, wake up, fever of 102, Ooh. Coughing, just terrible. And I don't know what it was. So didn't get to go to Zootown. Watched all of it though, except for, final round MPO that got canceled. During the week, I did not watch a lot, but I did manage to watch final round stuff. We were at a family function for Father's Day, and there were lots of people, and so I just kind of sat on the couch and pulled my phone out and watched some DDOs. So that's I got a good amount of the consumption in, and I'm really glad that I did, because what a final round on both sides of the field. No, holy smokes.
But before we talk DDO, quick thoughts on Zootown in whatever struck you.
Yeah, Zootown, it looked really nice. My one thing about Zootown is that it always felt a little... It's how I feel about a lot of mountain golf courses, is that it's very, the infrastructure is always dated. If you had seen the Zootown baskets before Zootown, or the Blue Mountain baskets before Zootown, I think it was hole 17 was like rusted. The top was crooked, and the basket was like wobbly, and half the chains were missing, and the tee pads were old and dated. And that's just the reality of mountain disc golf often, because number one, the weather conditions are incredibly hard on that infrastructure. And then number two is it's difficult to do work up there. And I know that they put in a lot of work, and I was really, really pleased with how nice it looked. And the other thing, I think it's a nice change of pace. I don't know if it's the pros' favorite place to play. It's not the best course on tour by any means, but I love getting to see mountain disc golf represented on the pro tour. And I would love to see Zootown keep coming. And if not Zootown, we've seen the 303 Open before over in Colorado, and I think that's one of the mountain courses. There's a couple of events, right, that happen in the Midwest that I think could qualify for silver level status, and I hope that those keep getting represented on the Pro Tour, because it's just gorgeous golf to watch. It
really is. It's what a contrast to DDO this weekend in terms of just sort of like the pleasantness of watching,
right?
Yeah. And, look at what's going on right now. Look at our last two winners on tour. Evan Scott wins the Zootown Open, and now this weekend at DDO, Parker Welk wins. And I said it on the React show on Sunday for Ulti World Disc Golf subscribers. Parker Welk? Be honest. Did you know his name before this weekend, Josh?
I knew him because he finished 16th at Waco. And I remember thinking, hey, it's another Huntington Beach guy. And so when I looked at his name, I was like, Parker Welk, who dat? And then I go click on his UDisc profile and it said Huntington Beach. And I was like, oh, it's the Huntington Beach guys. Yeah. That's how I knew Parker Welk. I did not know
for
him
you.
by name,
I did not remember. I have never seen his name before this weekend.
Yeah.
And, he comes into the final round trailing Calvin Heimberg by a couple strokes. I think a lot of people, when Calvin was up 2 midway through the back 9, probably just said, all right, I'm going to go on, do something else at this point. I've seen enough. Congrats, Calvin, on another dub. And Parker had different ideas thanks to hole 14 and a crazy 3-shot swing. Let's just talk about some of the stats and facts here. I mean, this is as wild as you might think. This is the first time that Parker has won a tournament that's not a B tier. He's never won an A tier. And of course has never won a tour event. His previous best finish was that 16th place at Waco. And his $8,500 winner's paycheck this weekend more than doubles his season earnings from his 23 previous events this year. Classic. And I think the biggest thing is that he is the lowest rated player to win a tour stop, Elite Series or Major, since 2004. Almost 20 years, Josh. And so he outdoes Colton Montgomery. He outdoes Connor O'Reilly. Similar kinds of guys, similar kinds of wins. But to do it on a bomber course, when Colton Montgomery won Waco, it was COVID. We had 2 rounds, weird fluke things, right? Like, who thinks Colton's winning in 3 rounds? It's possible, but I don't know that anybody's going to pick that.
Right.
And then when Connor won Delaware, I mean, no disrespect. I mean, it's an incredible win, but like that course is so vicious and wooded that I feel like there's just it's
a great equalizer,
little bit more of like, do you have it that day? But to win over 3 rounds in a wide open course against players like Calvin and Ricky and Gannon and who go on with the list, that to me is something that you just really don't see. You just don't see it.
And it's a course that, not the other thing that you have to keep in mind is, I bet Ricky, for example, probably has more rounds in Emporia, Kansas than just about anywhere else on the Pro Tour today. Like this course has been a part of professional disc golf for a very long time, and there have been a lot of tournaments here. And so it's not even like it's a new event. Portland, for example, right? That's another bomber course, but it's only been on tour for a couple of years, and it changes every year in pretty significant ways, so that nobody's really played this year's iteration, and you all come into it with a little bit more of an equal footing in terms of like actually having played the course. I don't know if Parker Welk's ever played this event. I don't think he has. But to beat the guys who, I mean, have played countless events at this course is just, it just adds to the story and the remarkableness of it.
I love what he said, and we're going to have him on the show later this week. He couldn't join us today because he's too busy doing other media obligations. I think he's going to be on GK Pro Skins or some kind of GK Pro something. And then he's doing a Jomez practice round. I mean, this is what happens when you win a Pro Tour these days, especially if you're a notable new name like this. I mean, everybody's hitting you up. So hopefully we'll have a chance to ask him about this. But he said he gets up, can't sleep the night before the final round, and he pulls up UDisc, and it's giving him a 1% chance to win. And he said, I thought that was a little disrespectful. And how many times have I said that on this show? Get disrespected by these algorithms. And you know what? I mean, for him to go out there and be able to perform at the level that he did and straight up just beat Calvin Heimberg in a I don't even want to call it a solo race because there were other people who could have won this tournament, but to, out-duel Calvin, the number one player in the world right now, that is just crazy. I mean, this is why that's what makes disc golf and golf exciting, because you just don't know. You just don't know.
Well, and that, man, hole 14, what happened to Calvin?
Very strange.
Goes OB.
Like with a really weird, really weird tee shot miss. Like a very poor shot.
Yeah. And I mean, this hole, let's pull some course stats real fast on this hole. Hole 14 averaged 0.55 strokes under par in round 3.
It was the easiest hole on the course, Josh.
It's the easiest hole on the course by quite a long ways. It's the only hole that has eagle potential for the MPO side, or was eagle. I guess maybe others do have eagle potential, but this is the only one. In round 1, it played negative 0.66, and in round 2, it was negative 0.58. And what's remarkable to me is that you're talking like 10% of the field are getting bogey or worse. It's not even, and par is less than a third. Like, this is more than half the field is getting a birdie or better on this hole.
62% of players birdied or eagled this hole in round 3, which, when you're talking about the touring level, cutoff of player, it's got to be closer to like 85, 90%.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then Double G took a double bogey on it, but we won't talk about it.
I mean, that's got to be OBville or something.
Something. Yeah, 2 OB on that whole. He went OB the first time and decided he was going to throw in and still get the eagle, and then it went downhill from there. But I mean, that is just a catastrophic mistake that defined the round. And then like hole 17 as well, Calvin throws his drive like straight into the ground 100. Parker hits a tree on the left side on hole 17 and is out of position for the birdie. And then Calvin steps up and I'm like, oh, okay, here it comes. This is a low ceiling. It is a
tailor-made
distance shot. Right. This is Calvin's hole. And he throws it straight into the ground 100 feet away from him and is shorter than Parker Welk because of it. And it's like, who is this guy? What happened to Calvin? Who do you replace him with? Weird final few holes, and Parker just had nerves of steel.
It's kind of wild. I mean, yeah, you pointed out like on 14, right? It's not just that Calvin made the OB mistake. It's that he compounded it by then getting big putted, missing from inside the circle, his only circle one miss of the weekend. And then it's a 3-shot swing. But the thing is, to take a 6 on that hole, you're giving away 2 strokes to the entire field, basically. So, credit to Parker for taking advantage, recognizing that Calvin was out of position, going more aggressive with his tee shot, going to a flex instead of a hyzer. And, I mean, we got to talk about it. This dude has a monster forehand. You look at this guy, you're like, okay, looks like a pretty decently well-built guy. And then he just like throws 450 easy forehand. You're like, what? I mean, I feel like we talk, it's like, oh, Chandler Kramer, best forehand on tour. You name pick your player that you think has the best forehand on tour, but right away it's like, okay, well, we got to talk about Parker Welk now, because who's throwing further than him with a forehand right now? Once upon a time it was Eagle, but that's gone.
I literally thought to myself, I was like, wow, I thought this class was reserved for Eagle. That is what I said to myself when I saw him throw the forehand.
Crazy.
Yeah. And what's noteworthy to me about Parker is like it looks like he's throwing a baseball. Like the way he gets his body into it, and like I feel like he is pitching. Like that's the vibe I get when he throws his forehand. And he just, because he's just able to harness so much power in his throw. I don't know if it's the most mechanically sound forehand. Don't come at me in the comments about that. But
I don't need to hear about the mechanics when the dude throws it that far. Obviously, his mechanics are sound. It's not possible to throw that far without good mechanics.
It's just impressive to watch. I mean,
quick correction. Calvin actually had one other circle one miss on hole 18 in round 2. But talk about an inopportune time to have your second. And, like, that's the thing. Like, you can't really knock Calvin for the putting this weekend. 93% C1X. I mean, maybe he didn't make as many circle 2 putts as you'd like to see. He was 70th at 23%, but it's not terrible.
23% is acceptable. Like,
it's not terrible.
Win a tournament with that.
He's first in a bunch of categories. First in parked, first in circle 2. It just turns out that, on a critical spot in the tournament, Parker outplayed him. And Parker did so while shooting 84% from circle 1. He just scrambled really effectively, hit half of his circle 2 putts. That's the big thing. I think that's the difference maker. How many total did he make? He made 4 of 5 in round 3, just absolutely en fuego. He went 0 for 3 in round 2, and he went 2 for 4 in round 1. But like pretty much all of those, so in round 3, his makes were for birdie, 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 and eagle. Like those are all bonus strokes. And that literally was the difference, is that he just like was on fire in the final round.
No. And Calvin missed 4 circle 2 birdie putts.
Right. But I mean, it's just a wild story. To have the ability to go up against the number 1 player in the world and not freak out, collapse, get super nervous and tight, and start missing all your putts. Instead, he went the other direction. It's like it invigorated him. And we just, Josh, how many times have we seen players folding down the stretch against the top players lately? Or not even necessarily the top players, but just like someone who's not won before, failing to win because they get tight and start making mistakes. That's been the story of the last 2 months.
You coming at my boy Goose like that.
He's not alone.
No, he's not alone. But I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's funny because remember who was in the lead going into this final round? It's Alden Harris. Tied with Calvin, right? And I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh, so Calvin's got the lead then, right? Like and Alden kind of fell apart in the middle of the course and pulled himself out of contention with, 4 pars, a double bogey, and a bogey.
Yeah, from like, 8 to 13. And that's just, you're gone at that point.
You're gone. And that's kind of the story that I expect to see. But Parker, man, it was an impressive week from Parker.
Evan Smith finishes in 3rd place, not to be confused with Evan Scott, who won last week. This is going to be challenging, folks.
As long as they're at the top, one of them has to.
We can't have this. At least you have to have 6 letters in your last name or something so that we can distinguish. Matty O was kind of in the mix. Didn't have any bogeys in the final round, but didn't get enough birdies. Shot an 8 under. Not bad. But Parker's 12 down, ruling the day. 12 down.
Yeah. 12 down.
Man, what a performance. Like, the clutch factor just massive. So Josh, I got to ask you, is he going to win again? Or is this just like one of those, is this a Connor O'Reilly situation?
Yeah. I don't think he's going to win again. And I'll tell you why. He made a very rapid ascent. So 2017 is when he's kind of, and 2017 probably isn't even the right year. 2018 is when he played, close to 10 events. So up until 2018, from 2013 to 2017, he played 8 events ish. 2018, he starts playing a little bit more. 2019, really playing. Starts out 2018, 946 rated. Starts out 2019, 970 rated. Starts out 2020, 972 rated. 2021 is 975 rated. And then he has another jump, and this goes up to 989 to begin 2022, and is 1,008 to begin 2023. Now, he has toured more this year than he ever has in the past. He's playing on more Pro Tour events, and has a pretty solid schedule under his belt this year. And since then, his rating has kind of plateaued. Started the year at 1,008, but is not even his highest rate. I mean, in March, he was 1013, then April 1012, and then May 1011, and now has dropped down to 1010. That rating is so far behind where you, 1020 is where you start going, okay, maybe, right? Sure. That's right. The right weekend, the right course, that person, you could see him being someone who's to worry about. This is so far outside the realm of expected, just like the Connor O'Reilly thing. I really don't know if we're going to see him win again.
I mean, I think that the plus in his column is that he clearly has just a truly elite level forehand.
And that is true.
On the right course could be enough of a weapon for him to do this again. But the minus is that he's only shot an event rating over 1040 once in his entire career. It was at a B tier that he won in California, back in 2022. Now, all of his tournaments where he shot over 1030 have come within the last 3 years. So he's clearly improving. Now, maybe he doesn't have the level of consistency necessary to be one of those guys who's, 1030 rated, but he can shoot a 1030 weekend. And for whatever reason, there's no ratings up right now for DDO. You can't even see unofficial ratings. But I would have to imagine he shot over 1040 this weekend. Maybe over 1050.
Yeah, I would think so.
So we'll see when those official ratings come out. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to expect to see this again, considering that we've never seen anything close to it. 16th place finish is nice, but you're not really in contention in any meaningful way. But hey, I'm looking forward to talking to him because I really liked what I heard from him just in the quick on-course interviews after rounds. And he seems like he's got a really sharp head on his shoulders and clearly has the self-belief to go out here and go on tour despite only being rated 1010.
Right. Yeah, that definitely, it takes guts to do. And, this is such a reward for him, I'm sure, and a validation. And the other thing that does, I mean, I know he's sponsored by Prodigy right now, but there's a good chance he gets more financial support because of this tournament. And we know that players have talked about when they get more financial support, it changes the way they're able to focus on the game.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, let's talk before we go to FPO. I do want to point out Calvin Heimberg, who of course is at number 1 in the standings, is now over 200 points clear of Gannon Buhr in second place. It is now his 8th podium this season. Only one of those was on a silver event, and I believe he has yet to miss the top 10. No, I'm wrong. At Champions Cup, he was 16th. But
the major.
The major. Yes. I literally said on the Rapid Reacts that you weren't there to slander Calvin. So now here you are to slander Calvin.
I mean, look, I got to help
Josh. He's the number 1 player in the world right now.
He is the number 1 player in the world right now.
And is there anything that I feel like people talk about how consistent he is. He's consistent. He's so consistent. But he's just good. I want to talk about him like he's good now, not just that he's consistent.
Yes.
This is the guy to beat. Yeah. And congratulations to Parker Welk for doing it. But it took kind of a fluky couple of mistakes from Calvin for it to happen.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that you pair along with that, right? Gannon Buhr just missed cash.
Crazy.
Really, really wild there. And Gannon is, I mean, he still is a prodigy, right? He's an amazing player and
not for long.
Not for long.
He's getting too old, right? Can't say he's prime.
Right. He's 18 years old and has a very, 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 very bright future ahead of him. But if you look at this season and the winners and the successes from this season, as well as the people who you expected to be winners and have successes from this season, it is a lot of people who, when you go into any given week, right? And it's funny because I think of, I don't know the best way to describe it, but there's a 538 is a sports and political statistics website. For those who don't know, I'm sure, Charlie, you're super familiar with it.
Everybody's got to know 538 at this point. Nate Silver, the whole thing. Anyway.
You would think so. Anyway, Nate Silver's leading 538. Did you know that? It's a little weird. Yeah. But what he's going to go do. Anyway, I always heard about Nate Silver that he's a sports junkie at heart who uses politics to pay for the sports side of 538.
Seems right.
But 538 does what's called the generic ballot, right? Which just says in a generic race, they put Democrat versus Republican, and here's how the vote would break down. And it's generic race, generic states, generic candidate, and that's 538 tracks that very closely, but that's used by a lot of political polling mechanisms. I feel like the generic tournament, if you just did any tournament, any course, any weekend, right now, Calvin's the guy, right? And you can find reasons why at certain tournaments you might prioritize or pick other players because of history or certain skill sets that maybe they excel at. But at the generic tournament, Calvin is the guy, and it doesn't even feel close right now. I don't know who I would pick on this generic scenario to beat Calvin in this season. And that's crazy because he is just pairing a well-rounded skill set with the consistency, but also the top-level performance and the high-end performance with it is the perfect storm of the way that Calvin is playing this season feels very reminiscent of the seasons that really distinguished Ricky and Paul as greats in this sport. And because it's not just about the performance in the season itself, it's a performance relative to his peers. And that's where you see on the point standings, the more than 200 point difference, 2 wins. If Calvin took 2 weeks off of tour and Gannon managed to win both of those events, he still would be losing to Calvin in the standings. That's how far Calvin is ahead. It's remarkable. It's a remarkable season, and one that, I think you're right that it's easy to talk about his consistency, but Calvin is just the best in the world right now, and it's not even close.
He has now got the second largest lead in the Pro Tour history. It's only the second time we've had somebody have a 200-plus point lead. The record lead was from Ricky Wysocki, the end of 2017, which is a different era of the Pro Tour. I mean, the Pro Tour was not what it is today, that's for sure, back in 2017. So we'll see where that trends. It's, got to be a disappointing weekend overall for Calvin, although he continues to just play at the highest level and put pressure on his opponents. Weird weekend for Gannon, by the way. 10 under round 1, no bogeys. And then 6 under round 2, 1 bogey. 2 OBs after not going OB at all in round 1. And then in round 3, he goes 5 over with 10 out of bounds strokes. What? Very strange. He took
I hope he's like
double
healthy.
bogey and a triple bogey. I think it's one of those just like wrong side of the bed kind of days.
Maybe.
We'll have to see what comes after this. But the same thing happened to Mr. Paul Macbeth out at the Konopiste Open, where he ultimately finishes in 6th place, despite shooting the course record in round number 2. And then follows it up with a very pedestrian round 3, loses to Nicholas Antela soundly. Antela dominated this weekend. And,
Charlie, hold on. I'm gonna correct you there. Pedestrian round 3 does not accurately describe Macbeth's round 3. Macbeth round 3 shot a 988.
You're right.
And 10 strokes different than Nicholas Antila. Pedestrian is like a 6 or like is like 6 strokes behind Nicholas. 10 strokes 988 right. After shooting the course record 1078 in round 2. 90 point swing from round 2 to round 3. I don't think you used quite.
It's not a strong enough word.
You need. It's not strong enough, Charlie.
Maybe we could go with awful, horrendous, disastrous. Another sub 1,000 rated round for Macbeth. What a strange time that is happening over in Europe right now. Like I'm looking forward to watching the like interview footage and this little documentary they're making about this whole thing, and I really hope they don't shy away from talking about the fact that he's oscillating between world-class level play and like non-professional level play. It's very strange. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I don't know either. Nicholas gets a win though in a crowded field
by 8 strokes, Josh.
By 8 strokes. I mean, Jakub Semerad, who won the week before, or who got beat by Macbeth the week before, was 10 strokes back. He tied for 3rd. You know, you got Macbeth down in 6th. Silvalot was at 20 down at 11th. I mean, there are names that you'd recognize that just, I mean, Nicholas just smoked. And, you know, something else I noticed, this is probably, it is a little bit of a side note, but Ulu happened this weekend as well on the Prodigy Disc Pro Tour. There were 4 tournaments this year.
Very busy weekend.
Very busy weekend. So Ulu attended only by Finnish players and a deep field, 109 players it looks like on the MPO side. Disc golf's still big in Finland. Lauri Lehtinen loses by 10 strokes in not even the most competitive field of the weekend. And I mean, Lauri was like, we were like, is it Lauri or is it Nicholas? Like he was, which Finnish player is the guy now? And Lauri really feels like he's fallen off, whereas Nicholas continues, whether it's in the United States and Europe, to continue to prove himself as being a very serious player who we're going to be watching for years to come.
Yeah. You know, he kind of played terrible at Portland Open, finished 78th, but then immediately bounces back and shoots a 1063 weekend. How many times has he even done that? He's only shot over 1060 for a weekend twice in his life. Once was this weekend to win. The other time, can you guess?
Is it U.S. Open? Or not U.S. Open, sorry. The USDGC.
A little too much golf this weekend. Yes, it was USDGC where he finished second to Gannon. 1065. Okay. And so, look, let's talk about Nicholas Antila for a second.
Okay.
Last 2 majors, Nicholas Antila second at both of them. USDGC and then Champions Cup. He's consistently shooting in the 1030s. He is now so far out in front at Konopiste Open, a tournament that I think you would use as a little bit of a projector for what we might see at the European Open, given the style of course. And he just kills everybody. What are Nicholas's chances of taking down EO, given that, you know, of course, he's going to be going up against many of the best American players, but it's not going to be a completely packed field. It won't be as strong. And he's clearly incredibly comfortable on these European-style courses.
I think I don't think European Open is quite... I don't think it's right to compare it to Konopiste.
Fair.
I think Konopiste is your like prototypical European disc golf with the big like the woods, the big trees.
A little more space.
European
at
Open,
the beast.
Yeah, European Open feels maybe more like a Jonesboro kind of style almost, with a little bit more space, but still like lines that you've got to navigate. Champions Cup, I really like his odds there. I obviously taking second. I like him at those style of courses. I really actually like him for Worlds because with Brewster being in the mix as well, I think he can do well at Fox Run, and I think he's going to be one of the best and possibly the best at Brewster in the field. So he has the skill set that kind of combines, 15th at Jonesboro, 13th at OTB, I really like 5th at Beaver State, right? I mean, those finishes there show me that I think he's going to be really well suited for Worlds. Unfortunately, though, for a European Open, I just don't think that's the course. Nicholas is good. He's a good player.
He finished 4th there last year, Josh.
I mean, I get that. Eagle's probably not playing. Maybe he's playing, but we don't know the status of Eagle's health. Calvin doesn't play well at the majors. Macbeth's not playing well. I mean, this might be his year. This might be his year.
He finished 4th last year, but just to point it out, he finished 18 shots back of Eagle. I mean, that was a wild tournament.
Was that Kevin Jones third that year? And how far back was he from Eagle?
17 shots. So Antela was 1 shot back of Kevin.
Don't get rid of those scores. Paul and Eagle scores
they're comedy. It's like
that.
It won't happen again.
It's not. So I mean, this really could be his year at European Open.
It's going to be very interesting to see. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk Haley King and Holland Handley and their race down the stretch into a playoff. And we've also got to talk about the DDO Spectator situation we need to discuss. We'll be right back.
Pound's the best of the best. It's the quality, the craftsmanship, the vision for what a bag could be. Let's start from the beginning. I didn't choose Pound, I chose Levi. I trusted Levi to make the best bag possible.
He's always trying to innovate. He wants it to be perfect. And I think he's the kind of guy that nothing's ever perfect.
I trust the product. I trust the people behind the product.
At this point, I don't think anyone's disputing that it's the best made bag.
Welcome back to the Upshot. Haley King is your FPO champ at DDO. She beats Holland Handley in a playoff after a wild swing down the stretch. Holland Handley had a few shot lead going into the back 9, and Haley just continued to keep the pressure on. She dialed up a great shot on 16. Holland goes into the water. Holland takes a couple bad spit outs and then clutches up on 18 to get the eagle, puts it to 10 feet. Haley tries to make a putt from circle's edge. It's kind of lucky that it wasn't like a worse miss. It might have gone into the water. Pretty risky decision from King, but ends up going to a playoff. They go back to 16. And on 16, Holland Handley makes the same mistake she did in the final round in regulation. Comes up just a little bit short of the island, kind of skitters along the edge of the island in the water. And that was it, as Haley King won the coin toss, Josh, and elected to go first and stuck it. Big time power moves from Haley King. And Holland Handley once again in a position to win, just coming up slightly short. And I guess just what do you make of the way that this all went down?
Look, I'm the first person to call out somebody who I think can't close and struggles when the pressure is on. And I actually want to give Holland credit here because I don't think that's what happened in this event. Obviously, she missed on 16, and we can talk about that. But in the back 9, Holland was not great on the back 9 all weekend. If you look, so round 1, she's 4 down in the back 9. So that's not bad. And then round 2, she is
3 over.
7. So 6 down in the front 9 and then goes 3 over in the back 9. Round 3 goes 3 down in the back 9. It's all in all, honestly, a fine back 9. She executed the front 9 like she needed to, and she played the back 9 right where she needed to be at. That 8 down was a plenty good round, and Haley just managed to keep pace with it. The playoff hole is brutal, and I think that there's a lot of value in being in those situations and playing that hole and having done that. And we've seen players lose tournaments on that hole. Was it Nate Sexton who also is blown up on that hole, I think? in recent years.
I don't remember Sexton blowing up on this hole.
But
it's possible. I mean, look, this is like any island hole. It's the best island hole in all of disc golf by far.
It is.
It's a beautiful water carry. It has all of this intrigue. It's a straightforward enough shot, but it's just test your nerves. And we've certainly seen people just get burned. You can't take a huge number like you can at USDGC because you just go to the drop zone, but you can still take a bogey or even a double bogey. And it's very birdieable, of course.
Right. And so, look, did Holland fail to execute when the pressure was the highest in the playoff? Yes. It's on a hole that is designed to do that to you, though. And on hole 18, when she's down by a stroke, she clutches up the eagle in order to keep herself in it, right? And so this is, every time Holland falls short, it still feels like she is trending the right direction. The first time she falls short, I mean, it was just a disaster. Like from the get-go, hole 1 just starts falling apart. And it feels like she is playing her game longer and longer through the tournament before she does fall short. It's a matter of time before Holland gets one. And it sucks. It sucks that Holland missed out again. But she is right there. She is in contention, and she's going to get one because it's clear that she is learning from that. Man, I wanted Holland to win so bad. No knocks on Haley. Like, I think Haley's great, but I wanted Holland to get her first win today.
This season, the most bogey-free rounds in FPO. Okay, Kristen has 5. This is courtesy of Statmando. Kristen has 5. Sayananda has 3. Holland has 2. She's in 3rd place in that list. Now, what I think is interesting about that is it's like, okay, Kristen is playing at another level than everybody.
Yep.
Sayananda, great player, nowhere near the power or really even risk-taking that we see from Holland.
Correct.
Has 3. And then Holland, a player who is going to have blow-up holes sometimes because of the way she plays the game, has 2 bogey-free rounds. I find that very impressive. Kind of when you think about the overall trajectory of what she's able to do. And I think it's a good point, Josh. It's not like her putting went to 0.
Right.
She by the way, she didn't have a bogey-free round this weekend. I just thought that was an interesting stat that kind of speaks to the development of her game. She had a couple circle 1 misses in round 3, but she also made a lot of putts. And, she got snake bit by a spit out on these awful baskets. Once again, we have to watch these horrendous DD baskets just be terrible. I mean, the sooner the better we get rid of these things. And I don't care if the manufacturers are upset about it. The product is inferior. Redesign it. We can't have this happening. I mean, look, spit outs are part of the game. It is what it is. But like these baskets are
not like that.
Terrible. And she was clearly incredibly nervous with the putt on 18. It was from 10, maybe 12 feet. Thought about it for like 15 seconds, but put it in. Yeah. And I would quibble with the decision of how to throw the shot on 18 or on 16. But I don't think it was like for her to replicate the same mistake she already made shows you that she was trying to throw the same shot that certainly she had practiced throughout the week and probably had felt like she had dialed in, and she just simply mis-executed it in the kind of the same way as she did the previous time. It's just hard. It's a hard shot.
2 other things that I'd like to note, completely unrelated, to each other. Number 1, on the baskets thing, I actually, the more I've thought about this, and you talked about manufacturers wanting and their sponsors wanting their baskets. Baskets are like tee pads. When they're good, nobody notices them. So they're not even that valuable of a marketing tool. When they're bad, though, everyone complains about them, and it hurts your brand. So just who cares who the baskets are? No one's going to talk about them. As long as they're decent. So get these stupid baskets off the course. Anyway, second thing though, Holland did not have any holes this weekend that were worse than a bogey. there are, I mean, Ella had one or just one, I think. Haley had one or two. Trina Allen had two. Kristen had one. Missy and Deanne Carey both didn't. But again, you go back to that power and the way they play the game. Holland has a level of power that allows her to take lines and make shots that other players don't get to access. And because of that, you would expect to see some bigger numbers from her. Nothing worse than a bogey. She's not compounding mistakes. Her putting is improving week to week, and she is able to stay in the game longer and in tighter rounds. I mean, would it surprise you in 2 to 3 years if Holland was the best player on tour? Could she get to that level?
Man, it's a tough question to answer. I think the raw skill is there.
Mm-hmm.
Is the polish and the mentality and the ability to go do it week in and week out there to match a player like Kristen? I think it can get there because, like you're saying, I agree with what you're saying, which is that we're seeing improvement even within the course of a season.
And improvement to very difficult things, right? Improvement to the mental game, right? The thing that hinders players who we think could have had wins long ago. Holland Hanley right now is rated is fifth place rated in the world. Kristen is at 992. Owen is at 981. Missy 974. Paige 970. So she's tied for fourth. Paige, Holland, and Haley are all tied at 970.
Well, I understand wanting to talk about Holland here, but I got to give a shout out to Haley King because this is now her seventh Elite Series or major win, if you include the Pro Tour Championship back in 2020, that really kind of, I think, pushed her from being a promising prospect to being a player who we knew could win at any time. She followed that up with 4 Elite Series wins in 2021. Didn't play as much last year, but won the major, and now back on top of the podium here at DDO. And Josh, I mean, you want to talk about players who could be the best player in the world in 2 to 3 years. Why not Haley King?
Absolutely.
Unbelievable raw talent. I think more in some ways than even Holland. Now, I think Holland throws a little further than Haley, but Haley's overall package and the just incredible aesthetic of watching her play the game, the smoothness with which she plays, the ability with the forehand and the backhand and the putter. I mean, the putting skill can be elite for Haley King. Obviously, she too has things that she has to get better at, particularly up top, where the mentality can be a little bit of a problem. It can derail her around sometimes, and it's just that kind of the negative self-talk that seems to spiral her sometimes. It's kind of lucky that didn't cause major problems this weekend, because you could see the frustration that she felt with the way she was playing, even though she was playing just fine. She shot at 8 under in the final round. So I think if you can see her get past some of those hurdles, I still feel, I've said this for a long time, Haley King is the most promising player in all of FPO in terms of who could be the next number one. And I think more so than Holland.
That's fair. I mean, Haley's proven it, right? She's gotten the wins.
She has.
And gotten big wins, right? And that's a big deal and should not be overlooked by any means. But I would not be surprised if Holland stays in that class with Haley as the years go on.
Well, I mean, they're rated the same. You just said it.
Speaking of another player who's kind of staying up in that class, Ella Hansen, another podium finish, 3rd place, only 1 stroke back, also gets the Eagle Line 18. I mean, just barely outside of where she needed to be in order to be a part of that playoff. Just another very, very excellent weekend for Ella Hansen, who's just also having a spectacular season. Who
pointed out on Twitter that it was her first time finishing ahead of Krista Tatar at a tournament. So congratulations. Anything to say about Kristen this weekend?
Man, just didn't didn't quite have her foot on the gas enough. And it's funny because we talk about how Kristen can play okay and can still win. She plays okay and is only 3 strokes off the lead. It was not matching the best rounds, right? Like that, she was a couple strokes back, and the biggest problem was that the best rounds this weekend were all shot by the same person. Usually, it's like Kristen, if she's not shooting the hot round, is shooting the second or third best round, and it's Haley in round 1, and then Holland in round 2, and then Ella in round 3, and so Kristen is right there on the mix because she's always shooting the second best round. That just wasn't the case this weekend, right? Like Haley had a bad round 1, but then backs it up with back-to-back 8s, and that's just plenty. Holland 8, 4, and 7. Kristen just was a couple strokes behind, and so nothing. I don't read into it too much. I'm glad that she decided to miss the podium the week that I wasn't here to make a pick. I'm convinced there's something to it, man. If I pick Kristen, she wins, so I just got to keep picking Kristen.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Jamie's picks bind for you. I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's true.
I mean, maybe they do in like the calculation, but in
in your heart,
mystic power of my picks, Kristen just didn't have me picking her to win it.
Well,
so.
My picks were just kind of brutal. I got Ella. You got nothing in FPO, and you got Calvin on your podium, but you had Gannon. I say you. Jamie had Gannon to win. It was his worst tournament of the year. I had Ricky, Gossage, and Dickerson. I mean, what the hell did Dickerson even do? Where was he?
What
he was
Dickerson
17th.
17.
Gossage was 12th, and Ricky was 6th.
Was good.
Yeah, he was solid. He was solid. So that's a point for each of us in the picks this week. Before we get to Purse Watch and Hole 18 reviews, we'll do those really quick at the end today. We have to talk about the DDO Spectator situation. There was nobody there. I mean, it was just an absolute ghost town out there. People who were on the ground were messaging us about it. You can see on the photos and on the coverage, there were very few people out at the course. Bleachers were empty. Drew Gibson tweeted about it. What do you know? It was bad.
It was bad.
And Josh, we talked about this last week. I say we, sorry. I talked about it with Jamie last week when we were talking about the US Open being in LA and having tournaments in bigger cities and bigger metro areas. Emporia is out in the middle of nowhere. And people are choosing at this point not to go. Now you can talk about why, but I think there's a number of factors. Number one, it's Father's Day. You might think that would be a good reason for people to go out to a disc golf tournament because dad wants to go watch the disc golf, right? But the problem with Emporia, Josh, is that there's nothing going on there besides the disc golf tournament. There's a bar and some places to eat. It's not a bad place to go, but there's really nothing to do. There's nothing to go and do. And so that combined with, once again, I have to say, what seems like senseless ticket pricing decisions to me. Okay.
And remember, this tournament was the terrible decisions last year at Worlds.
Correct. So remember, let's just throw it back. Last year at Worlds, it was $100 for a 5-day general admission ticket. Now, that doesn't seem that crazy, right? But if we go back to Utah Worlds, that was 2021, right? Because we didn't have Worlds in 2020.
Yeah.
2021, it was $50 for an all-day, all weekend pass.
Well, the other thing you need to remember is that Worlds last year didn't sell single-day passes.
There, Josh.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
So they double the price, but they also didn't sell single-day tickets except for the final day, which was $40. Okay, that's Worlds, right? $100 5-day ticket, $40 final round. It didn't really work out for them very well. There were a decent number of people there for Sunday, or Saturday, sorry. The last day was Saturday. Also a mistake. This year, DDO, a 3-day pass, right? 3-round tournament, $100. Tickets on the weekend were $40 a day. Mm-hmm. Josh, I think it's too expensive. Well, and why is it the same price as Worlds? How does that make sense? There's nobody there. The changes must be made to this tournament next year. I do not think the Pro Tour is going to approve this tournament coming back in this form, in this way, in Emporia, without dramatic changes. Do they want to go back to running the AM tournament like in the GBO days when they were insane packed fairways because all the AM players were there? You could consider that. Do you want to move this tournament to Kansas City or somewhere else where people will probably show up more? Is cutting prices even going to be enough? Let's say cut all the prices. 50 for a 3-day pass, 20 for the final day. How much is that going to even make a difference? Are people just sick of going to Emporia for tournaments? Kansas City wide open has to have a negative impact on spectating as well for this tournament. But I mean, this is bordering on like removed from tour. If this wasn't DDO, a long time standing event, like this would be on the chopping block. Right?
Yes. And I think there's a couple things I want to add to that. Number one, there are more Pro Tour events now with more geographic diversity than ever before, which means people who used to travel to DDO because they're like, oh, I'll go play the AM event, which I think is a big part of what you talked about. I'll go play the AM event and then I'll watch DDO. That was like the destination disc golf trip, right? That was what the people from Idaho did and Montana. As we looked at it, we said, okay, we either going to go Beaver State Fling or we're just going to go out to Emporia and you make the week of it. And that's what a lot of people would do. There are too many now, we go to Zootown, there's Portland, there's Beaver State, there's California options. And the Dynamic Discs Open is just not the massive pull that it once was in terms of the prestige and importance that this event holds in other people's minds. I think the other problem with it, I don't think the course is that good. I've heard it's great fun to play, but I still don't like watching this course. And I never have liked watching this course. I find it incredibly boring to watch. Hole 16 is incredible. And if I could pick up hole 16 and drop it on every course in the world, I probably would. Because I wish every course could have that. Have a true island hole. I think it's amazing. But after that, they all look the same. I don't find it that interesting a course to watch.
No one on the planet would choose to say, let's put championship level disc golf tournaments in Emporia, Kansas. I'm sorry. I mean, I know why we're there, but they're trying, I've said it a million times. They're trying to make lemonade out of a lot of kind of rotten lemons. It's just like the foundational terrain is not good enough.
Unless there's 50-mile-an-hour winds. At which point,
I guess
I hate it even more.
It's a reason to be like, this is challenging in its own way because it's windy, but is that fun?
No, it's not fun. So I don't know if I don't think prices are enough to save it, but we pulled some prices for other events.
Yeah, we did. So DMC is coming up this weekend, Des Moines Challenge. They've had good spectators the last couple of years. I'm expecting them to do well again. Number one, it's in a major metro. It's the general admission, the full weekend, $45. That's 55% cheaper than DDO.
You can go to a full week at DMC for the same price to go to Sunday at DDO.
And a Sunday ticket is $25. A Friday ticket is $15. The full week VIP is $110. Like, I got to be honest, these prices are more reasonable in my mind compared to what I think the market will bear.
Yeah.
And it's in a place where there's things to do. Now, I want to circle back to something you said, which is that, once upon a time, this was the destination tournament. And remember, so I just pulled it up randomly. I just picked 2017 because I wanted to pick a time when there was still Disc Golf Pro Tour, but the NTs were still the kind of the top billing.
Yeah.
The NTs that year were Las Vegas Challenge, GBO, Masters Cup, Beaver State Fling, Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, and the Ed Hedrick Hall of Fame Classic at W.R. Jackson. So look at those tournaments from the beginning. Mountain West, I guess, if we want to call LVC that. Midwest, GBO. California and Oregon, West Coast, and then East Coast, Delaware and Georgia. The only Midwest tournament, the only Midwest NT was GBO. And yes, there were Disc Golf Pro Tour events at that point. You had Ledgestone and you had Idlewild, but it still wasn't quite the same. Wasn't quite the same. Now at this point, nobody was selling tickets, so that you
just walked onto the fairways of Peoria.
It's obviously apples to oranges, but I do think that it's more than just the money. It's also the way things have evolved, the way that preferences has evolved, the way that it's now easier to go to a silver event and see the top players. So you go to Kansas City Wide Open, you're probably going to see some of the top players.
Yep. Well, that list again. Let's run through that list real fast. LVC.
Yep.
Not the shining jewel of the Pro Tour, but still on the Pro Tour. Masters Cup, no longer on the Pro Tour. Beaver State Fling made it back to the silver, and is one of the best courses in the world. Is the consensus among the pros who come and play that. You have DDO, Delaware's no longer on the tour, and then Ed Hendrick that course got pulled for a major, but the Hall of Fame Classic as an event is no longer what it once was either. I mean, the way the national tour kind of fundamentally changed, it feels like LVC and DDO are relics of a different era of disc golf, and it's starting to show. Right, LVC is the LVC is the only 4-round event this year that doesn't have a plus playoff or major distinction. DDO just poorly attended. I mean, these are on courses that are disliked, that aren't as good for spectators, that aren't as good for coverage. And I mean, they really do feel like relics of a different era of disc golf. And to think that you can charge $100 for what is this kind of dinosaur of an event? The
same price as a 5-day Worlds Pass. I don't understand the logic there.
I don't either. I mean, it does not make sense.
I mean, like I said, we're going to see changes next year. We have to. That you can't just run it back here. I mean, this is the. I think I don't know the actual ticket sales, and I don't want to make some broad. I mean, I've seen some claims online that disc golf spectating is dying. It's being killed by the Pro Tour. No, it's not. Just go back and look at Portland. It was packed.
Right. Yes.
But DDO.
Yes, it was.
I'm not trying to say kill DDO, but I am saying evolve DDO. We got to get out of Emporia. I know the DDO the Dynamic Disc headquarters is there, but why? That's the only reason we're there. Let's stop. Let's go to Kansas City. like find another place nearby. People are going to go to that. Yeah. It's going to be more fun. I'm not saying you never ever go back to Emporia. It could be fun to have around there at some point in the future, but maybe not. I don't think that there's any. I mean, they didn't even have Joan Supreme in the tournament this year.
Right.
Like they did this whole fanfare to build this new course, and then didn't even use it in the tournament this year. I feel like it's time for major changes. So we'll see what happens, but I think the model has to be more about getting closer to metro areas and finding ways to give people a good time outside of just the disc golf. Now, to its credit, the Dynamic Disc, the Fly Mart there is a classic. It was great fun at Worlds. I'm sure it was good, although I don't know how many people were there this year at DDO. So let us know your thoughts. Shoot us an email, upshot@ultiworld.com. We love hearing from you. Really quick, Hole 18 reviews. Josh, go.
This is one of the few things that I do like to credit this course, Hole 16, Hole 18. Those are the two holes that I think are standouts on this course. And it's actually, for me, for both sides of the field. On the MPO side, it's got the water carry with the side hill. It proved for plenty of drama last year. And, while Cavan was able to get the birdie, it has enough. In fact, I think it is probably, when I look at the scoring separation on the MPO side, maybe just a touch soft, but all in all, it's probably one of the best scoring separation you can ask for. 45% birdie, 33% par, 22% bogey or worse. And there's the chance at the double. Not often, but it does happen. And so I really do think this is a good hole. And I love water carries on the final hole. Even if, no MPO player is going to throw it in the water, but it still is. It's scenic and it puts some pressure. I love that. I give it an 8.
There's water danger on the green too. And I think that's
right. That is true. The water danger on the green.
That's compelling because it makes those putts more pressured. And yeah, you give it an 8. I do too. I think we're pretty aligned here. I give it a 7 in FPO. I think, it lacks the water carry for FPO, but it is eagleable, which I kind of like that wrinkle. It's like, okay, if you really can bomb it out there and you can control it enough not to put it in the water or roll it down the hill, then you can be rewarded with an eagle. And that was great drama down the stretch. You have to admit.
Yeah.
That was very exciting watching Haley and Holland come in on that hole, and because it had that opportunity for that separation, that's what sent us to a playoff and made that fun. So because it lacks that first shot intrigue, it's kind of balanced out for me, but it's just not quite as cool of a hole, I think. So I give it a 7, but good scoring separation all the same.
Yeah. My one complaint, so I also give it a 7, just because I love the FPO have a chance at eagle. I think that needs to happen more. And I enjoy that. I think the hole does need a touch more teeth though, for players who make mistakes, when they're playing aggressive. There were only 5 bogey or worse scores. Kat Merch took a bogey, Sarah Gilpin took a bogey, Raven Klein took a bogey, Leah Sinigini took a double, and Caroline Henderson took a double bogey. Here's the problem though. Except for Kat Merch, who was 10th, Caroline Henderson was the next best finisher in that group at 27th. Right. The bogeys did not come from players who were anywhere in contention. It needs just a touch more teeth for the FPO side. Pull some OB in a little bit tighter around that. Just
stretch it out a little bit.
Let them. I worry you lose the eagle potential to do that. So I would rather just have, if you bail out left a little bit, there's more OB when you go for the eagle chance. So, because that way, Holland, who needs to get the eagle to match Haley and keep to push that playoff, it still goes for it. But maybe if she outdrives it just a touch, then it turns into a double bogey or a bogey, and that creates some more intrigue for me. So a little bit more teeth, but all in all, good hole. I love the FPO can eagle it, so it's a 7.
Here's your purse watch. $85,089 purse this year. $8,500 to the MPO winner, $5,000 to the FPO winner. That's up 9% from 2022. It's right in line with where things have been so far this year, right kind of middle of the pack. Below OTB, well below Portland, but ahead of Open at Austin and Waco. So pretty standard stuff.
Yeah.
That is going to do it for this week's edition, not this week's, Tuesday's edition of the Upshot. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you on Thursday. We've got a couple interviews lined up. It's going to be a good one. Don't miss it. We'll talk to you then.